During a dangerous mission, a police officer is injured and cries for help. A K-9 officer hears him and saves his life, becoming his lifelong partner on the line of duty. However, what happens years later will leave you heartbroken. Officer Michael Desta had chased a burglar deep into the woods. When they reached a dead end, he ordered the man to turn around slowly. His heart pounded. He had just realized his gun had fallen during the chase. What was he supposed to do now, he wondered. Thankfully, he didn't spot any weapon on the suspect, so he hoped to handle the situation quickly and without anyone getting hurt. But the man seemed to notice that Mike was unarmed. In a flash, he pulled out what looked like a weapon and lunged at the officer. He struck Mike several times before the officer could even react, then took off running. Pain tore through Mike's body. The man had attacked him with a knife. Most of the wounds were shallow, but the gash on his leg was deep, bad enough that he couldn't run. Truthfully, Mike felt too weak to stand, let alone give chase. A minute later, his leg gave out, and he collapsed onto the forest floor. He tried using his radio, but there was no signal this far into the woods. He knew he had to find a way to alert his fellow officers, but he had no idea how. All he could do was scream, praying someone might hear him. If only Alfredo had been with him, he thought through tears. He could have sent him to find help. This wasn't the first time that day he had thought about his partner. That morning, he'd woken up to a beautiful sunny day in Middletown, and his first thought had been, this would have been the perfect day for a walk with Alfredo. But Alfredo was gone. His K-9 partner had been killed in a shootout during a mission to catch suspected drug dealers. The worst part was that Mike had been the one to discover Alfredo's lifeless, bloodied body, and he still hadn't recovered from that moment. It had been weeks since Mike returned to duty, and he still felt the weight of his partner's absence. Coming back to work without him felt like being a police officer without a gun. But he had no choice. He'd been given time to mourn, and now it was time to move forward and find a new partner. A few weeks earlier, new police dogs had arrived at his department, fully trained and ready to serve. All they needed were compatible handlers, and they'd be cleared for duty. Mike wasn't exactly eager to choose a new partner. He still missed Alfredo too much, but it was part of the job. To select the right dog, he needed to decide what specific role the new K-9 officer would fill. Then he picked up the scent and heard the sound of crying. This K-9 officer's name was Hunter. Like the good dog and police officer he was, Hunter began barking nonstop to alert the other cops, then led them through the woods until they found Mike. Mike was rushed to the hospital, where he lost consciousness as doctors cleaned and stitched his wounds. While he was out, Hunter never left his side. The dog stayed in the room until Mike finally opened his eyes and gave a joyful bark the moment he stirred awake. After Mike was discharged and returned to work, the first thing he did was look for Hunter. Both of them were thrilled to see each other again. Mike had come to thank the K-9 who saved his life. But when he looked into Hunter's eyes, he saw more than just a hero. He saw a partner, a friend, a sidekick. And Hunter seemed to feel the same. That's when Mike made his decision. From that moment on, Hunter became his new partner. They trained together daily. Mike took Hunter with him everywhere, home, patrols, even family visits. Wherever Mike went, Hunter was close by. No one could come between them. They quickly became one of the strongest duos the department had ever seen. After that life-changing encounter in 2007, they officially started patrolling as a team the same year, and continued for a long time. Their daily routine included training, patrols, search and rescue, detection of drugs, firearms or explosives, and protection of people and property. In just a few years, Hunter had assisted in several major drug busts and was praised publicly for helping locate an elderly woman with dementia who had gone missing at night. Mike and Hunter were simply unstoppable together. 10 years later, Hunter had become more than just a K-9 officer to Mike. They had been through countless missions and challenges, and the officer was looking forward to many more. But then, one day, they were assigned to investigate a location suspected of housing drug dealers. Their task was to observe and, if needed, arrest those involved in any illegal activity. Mike was ready as usual, but this time Hunter wasn't standing at his usual spot, waiting to leave for the mission. That struck Mike as odd. He looked around and found Hunter lying in his bed, awake but not responsive. He also remembered that Hunter hadn't eaten the day before. Mike had been too exhausted after their 12-hour shift to notice. He assumed Hunter was just tired. The week had been rough, so he let him rest and headed to work alone. But when he returned home, Hunter didn't greet him at the door like he always did. That scared Mike. He rushed over to Hunter's bed and saw him lying in the exact same position as earlier that day. The sight filled him with dread. Mike picked him up and took him straight to the vet. After a quick check, the vet said Hunter was probably just stressed and gave him some pills to boost his appetite. But a week passed, and nothing changed. In fact, Hunter looked worse. He'd lost weight, his breathing sounded heavy, and he always seemed exhausted and uncomfortable. Restless, too. Mike quickly returned to the vet and shared everything he had noticed over the past few days. They ran more tests. When the results came in, Mike received the heartbreaking news. Hunter had developed aggressive liver cancer, and no treatment could cure him. Though heartbroken themselves, the vets recommended that Hunter be put down to spare him from suffering. Mike felt like he was drowning. His worst fear had come true. Again. First Alfredo, and now Hunter. He couldn't stop asking himself, how did this happen? Things were fine. Everything had been going well, so how was this even possible? Mike was crushed at the thought of losing his partner for the second time. Memories of Hunter flooded his mind. Every mission they'd worked, every long walk in the park, every quiet moment they'd shared. He tried to reason with the vets, hoping there was something, anything they could still do. But they told him there was no other way to help Hunter. Mike considered ignoring their advice, but he couldn't stand the idea of Hunter living in constant pain. In the end, he agreed. It was the hardest decision he had ever made. That night, Mike barely ate or slept. His entire world had changed in an instant, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Hunter stayed by his side all night. He seemed to sense something was wrong with his human and tried to comfort him, unaware this would be his final mission. Mike, in return, stayed awake, watching over Hunter, doing everything he could to ease his pain. But it was impossible. 2 days later, members of the Connecticut Police Department in the city of Middletown stood in formation to say goodbye to K-9 Officer Hunter. Officer Michael Desta cradled him in his arms as they made their final walk to the vet, where Hunter would be euthanized. Officers stood shoulder to shoulder as Mike and his beloved partner walked down the center, giving Hunter his final salute. It was the second worst day of Mike's life. The first had been losing Alfredo. Losing a partner is one of the hardest things an officer can endure. The bond formed through loyalty, trust, and training runs deep. For Mike, this bond had formed twice, first with Alfredo, then with Hunter, and lasted until their final moments together. That morning, Mike told himself he wouldn't cry in front of Hunter. He wanted to be strong for his best friend, but he couldn't. The emotions overwhelmed him, and he broke down, tears streaming, as he held Hunter in his arms. His fellow officers cried with him, turning that heartbreaking moment into something unforgettable. Mike kissed Hunter again and again, saying goodbye one last time, before gently handing him over to the vet to do what had to be done. Mike needed time, another break, to process the loss of his partner and friend. Thankfully, the department understood and allowed him to grieve without pressuring him to choose another K-9 partner. Hunter's service and value to the department were well documented. He would be missed by everyone, but most of all by Mike and his family. What a heartbreaking ending. Do you think it would be hard for you to choose another K-9 partner if yours died in the line of duty? Did the officer's final farewell to Hunter make you cry? Tell us in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.